Welcome to the Change Champions podcast. In this episode, we are breaking down how to sell without feeling salesy. So if you've ever written a post, hit publish and prayed someone would message you and you are in coaching or consulting, then this episode is for you. We're going to explain why outreach doesn't have to feel awkward or salesy or sleazy, and the real reason why it can feel gross. We're going to talk about why you should be planting seeds and not pitching clients, how to make genuine, authentic connections, and then give you some proof of what happens when you actually do that, and show you how and why it works. And for those that are new to the podcast, even honestly for those that are not, this episode is, I guess, our inaugural reformatting episode, where Ped and I, co-founders of Leverage Accelerator, are testing
Hello.
out some new things. I'm Riley, by the way. And
And
Ped, do you want
I'm
to?
Ped.
Oh, yeah, Ped. We're matching today. That was
Yeah,
unfair.
we are. We didn't plan this, but we are matching.
So I think part of the reason we wanted to reformat some things is because whether the information is coming from us or guests, and we might have some on in the future, we wanted to make sure that we're getting the right information out there, because there's a lot of information out there. And I think what at least I have heard, and I'm sure that you've heard the same, Ped, a lot of it is kind of just BS. I think there's a lot of stuff that
A
doesn't.
little bit, yes. And it's also quite overwhelming as well, not knowing exactly which to choose to pay attention to. A lot of shiny objects because of the claims that are made. A lot of the times, those claims can seem very appealing and dazzling. And yet it has an air of, like you said, that BS around it.
Yeah,
And that's why we all have this conversation to give real practical advice, things that work for ourselves and our clients.
yeah, yeah. I think we're closing in, or no, I think we're over 30 years combined in the coaching, consulting, training, facilitating. We've both worn a lot of different hats, but maybe proper introductions. Maybe that's a separate episode. I just want to get into the meat of
Let's do
the
it.
topic. So let's talk about outreach, as in you are reaching out to someone else, and whether it is your grandma and you're checking in on a phone call, or it is cold prospective clients who you have never met before, a stranger. Either way, it is starting with you initiating conversation. That's what we mean by outreach. Are you going to add something, Pen?
No.
I'm reading your eyes there. So I, in my experience, most coaches and consultants avoid outreach because they think they are pestering, they are bothering, they are annoying. I'm sure we have all had in real life, not online life, the person knocking on your door, selling who knows what, when you are not interested. So much happens so often that there's like no solicitation signs on people's houses, homes. So I I get all that. And at the same time, I think kind of like social media, honestly, there's the good side and the bad side. To me, if you imagine like walking into a store, you're wandering in, you didn't know maybe that you were looking for something in particular. You're just kind of browsing, you're looking around. And then you find something, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is the perfect for XYZ. Like, you weren't aware of it. And I think it's that kind of like that mindset where a lot of people, there's this disconnect for people. So I wanted to share this very brief story, which is kind of how I got my start, which was I watched this TED talk that Ped, the speaker very well, because he actually introduced us. So maybe I'm giving away the ending here, but I saw this TED talk, viral talk. This person had no idea who I was. I was just some 20 something year old across the pond, because he is British and I am American. And it just really struck a chord with me. And so much so that I decided to reach out to him, and I just offered to be of service. I was kind, curious. I was probably not using the best grammar in my emails. It was probably not reading as well as I might read today, all these years later. But I reached out, and long story short, he replied back and then eventually hired me for something that I wasn't even offering. Like, at the time, I was a mental performance coach. I had a background in sports psychology, and he hired me to do operations consulting. So I didn't even know what my offer was. And that's how genuine I think I was coming across in that I wasn't cold pitching something. I was just offering to help, to be of service any way that I could. And he kind of helps to guide me in what that help could look like. Actually, he even critiqued my first email.
Very,
Critiquing,
that's
I just
very,
implemented it right away. And that's how it turned into a real conversation. And ultimately, I think we can say Mark, who connected us, years later.
yeah. And one of the things which really strikes me with that story is that it really comes from that authentic place of reaching out to someone, starting a conversation without expectations, maybe a hope, but not expecting this person is going to be a client, and therefore I need to go into that metaphorical knock on the door via the email to say, hey, do you want me to work for you? Which, going back to this feeling of, I guess, that ickiness, that's probably the vibe that a lot of those messages, how the vibe that those messages have, which immediately just close the door, makes people want to bolt
Well,
the door.
you're adding to the noise, right? You're not really like standing out. If that's what everyone's saying, then it's not really helping you out. And I think that, so a lot of our clients share this belief, right? I know, so Justin and Haley, when they joined our program, I remember, we weren't even talking about our program when I first met Justin, and we are just having a conversation. Again, so we call this authentic outreach. People watching, listening, and the belief was like, again, we don't want to pester, and so like if people come to us, great. I think every I don't know anyone who's not okay with business coming to them, but the reality is, if people don't know what you offer, or you're not putting yourselves in front of them, then you're just probably not going to be top of mind. You're probably not going to get the business. And so if you want to help more people, that's probably a belief that needs to shift.
And well, just on that, there's definitely, well, we talk about this in other parts of the work we do with our clients about thinking about sales as a service. And it really starts at the beginning of the process, even before there is even a sales opportunity. Just being of service automatically can lead to more opportunities. Not every single opportunity, but being of service does just inherently create goodwill in the system, goodwill in the marketplace, and there'll ultimately be people who are going to be willing to and wanting to work with you. But there's something that you're talking about there as well, Riley, around how it is that you even get in front of people, right? And sending a message to people directly is one way. Another belief is, and it can work, is writing content, making it good enough that it naturally attracts people to you. And yet that, as we're finding out ourselves, and as we know, is it's very much a long game. And if you want to be of service sooner, it's not a case of just writing a bit of content, waiting around, hoping that the right eyeballs see it and their timing is perfect, and they go, that was a really good post about X, Y, or Z. I'm going to reach out to you and ask you to work with me. That's rarely going to happen. Although posts can, in the long term, with enough volume and quality, can build up trust and relationships. But when you're beginning, or for the most part, you really want to be having genuine one-to-one conversations with people, because that's when you're going to know what people really need help with, what their problems are, what the consequences of those problems are, how it's manifesting in their lives, what's not working as well as it could or should, and what's possible if you do solve that. And those conversations happen through that outreach.
Someone has to start the conversation.
Someone has to start the conversation. Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And something we talk about too is like, so in sports psychology, we talk about controlling the controllables. And that's a sports term that gets, I mean, but honestly, I think it pertains to most things in life. And so I would much rather take responsibility for starting the conversation than just leaving it up to chance, because chance isn't a good business strategy.
Although
And
just on that, I always joke that the first 7 to 8 years of being in business, my business strategy was opportunism. So it was something that didn't work very well because it was the ups and downs. I didn't know when the next gig was going to come, and sometimes I didn't have work. But it's it's a strategy that I use because I felt uncomfortable doing all the other things, which for me, and I think for a lot of people, it was a case of choose your poison. Do I do outreach? Do I write content? Do I fork money out and pay for ads?
yeah, I
It's
should be
my
doing something, which is
yeah.
and I mean, opportunistic. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's like, how do they say, what do you define luck as when preparation meets opportunity, right? So obviously the preparation is important. You have to have some sort of skill, and that's ultimately, that goes without saying. I think if you can't actually solve a problem, figure out how to solve the problem first. But the opportunity part is really what we're talking about, and it's really creating opportunities. And I was talking to someone who we both know the other day, and uh, we were talking about kind of like the dream outcome they want to get to, which kind of I think segues into the next part of, like, we were talking about planting seeds, not pitching clients. So we'll segue into that for people in a second here. But the dream outcome he was saying he wanted was just effectively more clients. And I was like, okay, what's the main thing that would help you know that you're moving in that direction? He's like, well, ideally, if I had, enough clients that could refer me work, he's like, that's how I would love to get more clients. And I said, okay, but hold on, pause. One problem here is the way that you want to get more clients is by having more clients to refer you. Like, we can't start that. Like exactly what you said earlier. You have to. So we had a good laugh, and then we went back to, well, the starting point, like what's in your control, and just initiating a conversation, definitely in your control. But again, I think it's that fear that's attached. Like, people say they hate selling and they hate outreach and they hate. I think what most people actually hate is being ignored, and that, like, discomfort, that uncomfortable feeling. And the main reason they're being ignored is because what we said, they're being drowned out in the noise. Like, you sound like everyone else. Like, if you're actually being of service and genuinely starting a conversation to expand your network and potentially be able to get more referrals, probably help you stand out.
Well, and it really comes down to relationships, right? And part of the reason why a lot of people end up, and myself included, having a little bit of a slow start is because we are waiting for those referrals, and instead, in this faulty belief that the what is it? It's not that we don't believe that that would work, because we often say it's a cherry on top of the cake. When it comes to referrals, it's the thing
Mm.
that will naturally happen when you do good work.
Yeah.
It's we've got to start somewhere, right? And it's relationships.
So when it comes to starting the relationships, actually, I want to build on something you said earlier, because we're talking about planting seeds at this point. When you talked about, like, the opportunistic, I think a lot of coaches and consultants ride that roller coaster. Honestly, almost every business that I'm aware of has that like the up and down cyclical. It depends on the business of when that cycle is, but think of like Christmas time, Q4, end of year. That's where the vast majority of sales comes in for a huge amount of businesses, and they're not complaining. They're not like, oh man, like it's so quiet in February or March. It's just they understand that there's highs and lows, but we're consistently putting an effort to plant the seeds so that we can harvest them come Q4, let's just say, or whenever it is for you and your business. It's just the when they sprout might not be as consistent. That depends on the seed or whatever, to use that analogy. But what you can do consistently is plant them and nurture them and water them.
Right. And this is it's a lesson that I've had to learn the the long way, the hard way, just to know that these things take time. That there's no such thing as, and maybe going back to something that we talked about, the things that sound like BS, the things that dazzle you, that in 30 days you will get X, Y, or Z. And in fact, it's missing the point that to plant those seeds and to nurture them takes time. And it takes not just time, but consistent effort that ultimately compound over that time. So it's not like you just do a big blast of that effort, whatever that might be. So reaching out to prospective clients, starting curious conversations. You can't do that all in on a Monday and do nothing for
Yeah.
the rest of the month.
Yeah.
It's got to be bit by bit. Otherwise, it's just going to be overwhelming. And the same with posting. We've been talking about a little bit about content as well. There is this hope that people have that a post will automatically lead to a client. And then I'm thinking about when I started to write regularly on LinkedIn, I would agonize over the words that I would use, and honestly, there's this feeling that as soon as somebody liked the post, therefore they must want to be a client, and I'm just going to send them a message immediately, and just go full guns blazing. And in fact, that isn't a sales strategy either, because it's the same problem as before, that knock on the door that nobody asked for.
I mean, the thing is like, I don't have any problem with someone reaching out, sending a message, saying hello. It's just, it's the cold pitch part.
Yes.
It's the jumping straight to, and honestly, even that, a well-researched, structured, framed, etc., cold pitch is not a bad thing. It's just when you do, most people don't actually do that. That's the real problem. And then in our space, it's so easy to get drowned out and blend into everyone else doing that. Like you can spot all of the AI comments on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to see, especially if you if you're looking for them in particular. But I think that time, like, I want to hit on this point, and we hadn't talked about this beforehand, Ped, but the time piece. It is possible for people to dump tens of thousands of dollars into ads to reach a wide like a wide net cast of the market. And then you will get a tiny percentage of those eyeballs who you might have just hit them at the perfect time. And that's where when you knock on someone's door and they're like, oh my God, how did you know? I was looking for solar panels. That's thanks so much for approaching us to find out. But like, so that can happen, but it's kind of, number one, you're compressing the time piece. Number one, you're compressing the resource. Like, it's a representation of resources, time, energy, capital. So that's one way to kind of shortcut it. The part that you can't shortcut, though, and I can go into further why, but it's the trust piece.
Yeah.
You can reach a lot of people really fast with enough money or ad spend or whatever, but you can't, like, it's still going to take them time to build up trust. They still need some information. That's like, imagine, like, we're both married. Imagine if, like, on the first date, like, can you imagine compressing like how many ever years of dating into like to like let's just speed this up, go straight to marriage? Like that's like the seedling analogy. It's like trying to like pull on it to make it grow faster, but all you're going to do is rip it out of the ground. Like you can't accelerate that.
Which is what just sends so many alarm bells for me right now when I see the ads or even the cold emails say, we've got this new automated system that's going to help you get all these clients in no time, or it's all done for you. And I just feel like there's some element of that is inauthentic. And but even if they're trying to sell the system that they're using to get me, and I can tell that it's completely off because they've used a name of a company that I had been associated with in the past in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your system just doesn't work, which goes back to that whole thing. Although maybe we're being a bit of a broken record, Riley, around creating those genuine relationships that build trust that you cannot automate. And I know that when we work with our clients and we share with them this, this authentic outreach framework, and it's more of a principle really than a framework. It's how you go about initiating a genuine conversation, how you build interest, and how you ultimately go and invite people to jump on a call with you, and not even a sales call, and just an exploratory, like, I'm curious to hear about what's going on for you, is that you can't templatize that either. You cannot say, here's going to be my message I'm going to send to everybody. There's always going to be something unique or different that you can only really get if you are a genuine person. And we have tried to prompt AI to go and do some of these things. It does an okay job, but it's not as effective and as relationship building as we can be.
I think the challenge is when people look for the shortcut, which is what you're talking about, is like, hey, I have a shortcut for you. And we're like the psychology here. And this is what marketers are doing to you. If you're watching this, you're a coach or consultant, like, they know that if they can make something sound or feel easier for you, then that becomes an attractive offer. It has to be believable though, which is also why it's typically countered with tons of social proof, which may or may not be real. But if you actually take the time to go look on it, you can usually, like, you can click on a video and watch. You can figure out pretty quickly, like, was this bot or was this a real person? Like, can I find this person? Is this a real human?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Like that's, so putting that aside, because that can be a whole rabbit hole. Just to recap where we're at here. So first of all, to get more business, to grow your business, to have a bigger impact, you want to make sure that you are creating more surface area, creating more opportunities for you to get lucky, right? That's the preparation meets opportunity. We need more opportunities. What's in your control? Initiating conversations. The reason it feels sleazy is because you were going straight for the kill. Like you were hunting instead of like farming. So just focus on increasing exposure. That's the number one piece, without diving into like what authentic outreach is step by step. Maybe we'll do that in a future video. But that's number one. And then number two is really the, like, just keep planting. Don't plant, nurture. We're not going straight to the pitch. That's what we've said before.
And really, like, outreach isn't about capturing clients. It's about cultivating trust. It's not a pitch. It's more of a presence.
I like that. So all right. So if you do these things, the last thing we said is, like, how do you know it's working? What happens? Well, what we started off with, we can list out some few client things that we talked about. But for me, I learned it firsthand, again, with the TEDx speaker, Mark. I just showed up, and I had skill sets, and I said, I don't know if these things will fit, but let's have a conversation, see where it goes. I was able to kind of demonstrate my work because I didn't have any track record. Like I didn't have a long list of testimonials. I was just starting out. If you do have testimonials, then you can go even faster, because that's a bank of trust, like, that other people have given to you that you can show someone else. But if you don't have that bank of trust, you gotta start somewhere. If you do have it, so I had talked about our clients, Justin and Haley, earlier. So when they joined our program, and this is, I just want to preface by saying, our program is not built to get you results in 2 days. Like there's nothing you can learn or do differently in that amount of time. What can change though is the belief. Belief can change in a moment. And so we're talking about here is this kind of mindset shift. And so for Justin and Haley, credit to them. Like, they had been building trust with their audience. They were not putting themselves in front of them with a clear ask, and being direct about kind of owning what their skills were in a way. And they were able to get 3 clients in 72 hours as a result of just that little tweak. Like, that was it. Because there just wasn't even time to make any other changes. I mean, 72 hours that's insane. So that's one example. Do you have an example as well, Ped? Of
Oh,
someone?
we had one of our clients that we both work with, right?
Yeah.
Leanne, who got 4 clients, signed an agreement on the same day. Now, it's not that she put out the word on the same day, uh, and they responded. She'd been cultivating and nurturing those
Yep.
relationships, and they just all came to fruition at the same time, just as she was about to go on a holiday as well, which I think is a great holiday gift you can give yourself when you sign 3 contracts and take 2 weeks off on a motorbike trip with your husband, which is what she did.
That's that's so funny because Justin and Haley were also on vacation when they got the.
Yeah.
I remember them saying that. And actually, so speaking of mindset, so John was actually our mindset coach, like on, I'll say part of faculty for us. But he went through the program before that happened, as a client as well. And I remember I don't remember why, but it's probably related to what we started off this episode talking about. There were some things he just wasn't doing because he just felt weird. He'd always had inbound referral clients before. He wanted to have some more outbound, more predictable, build your pipeline kind of clients. And I think it was like the first week and a half, 2 weeks wasn't clicking for him. And then as soon as I remember, because he wrote this in a post, he was like, Riley gave me a kick in the ass. Like, just do it and see what happens. And he did it. What happened? He got his first client like a week later. So in 3 weeks from joining the program, but again, from the actual like that shift, it was like a week. And that's not to say like if you haven't started any conversations, if you don't have any skill sets, if you have not been in business ever before, chances are it will not happen in 72 hours. It will not happen in a week. All these people we're talking about were already in business. There are examples of clients we've had though that started their business, and I think in Leanne as well. Like you said, it took her months of cultivating, building those relationships. But then that in the B2B world, that's kind of more par for the course anyway. But it all ended in 4 new clients, new work that take you into the new year. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And without going back to that point that we're making, or maybe going back to it because it's an important one, it's all of these things that we are talking about around how we might feel a bit icky reaching out to people. It's really down to that mindset shift that you're talking about, right, Riley? Because if outreach feels gross, it's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because you've been told the wrong story about what it's supposed to be. Or at least you've experienced it because somebody else has been told the wrong story about how it's supposed to be. And so that's the blueprint. And
Yeah.
and I know that when we speak to coaches and consultants about potentially working with us, and when we talk about the process of reaching out to people, for some people it is a big edge to cross. And the funny thing is, once they cross it, they realize that they're just being themselves. They're being the regular, curious, empathetic, wanting to help people selves. And it doesn't feel gross. It doesn't feel icky. It feels a really natural part of what they do anyway.
Serving, not selling.
Exactly.
Which is so wild because that's why like most of the coaches I meet, that's why they started like they want to help, they want to make a difference, they want to make a change, a positive impact. They are change champions.
Yeah.
And yet they like see sales as this nasty weird thing that is preventing that, when actually that it is. It's like you just flip it on its head. It's like all of a sudden, by serving people, I'm creating sales, which helps me serve more people. And so instead of this downward spiral and riding the roller coaster of opportunity or being opportunistic, as you said earlier, it becomes all of a sudden it's like there's 100%. There will always be the troughs, valleys, the peaks,
Oh yeah.
the valleys, right? The ups and downs, but it can compound over time. It can build and grow over time, and that's the exciting thing.
Yeah, which when you're starting out and every potential conversation seems like the only opportunity, it's really easy to fall into that scarcity mindset. We call it on well, we haven't named that, but we talk about it on our program, and how we can step into a more abundance mindset. It is about that consistency, continuing to cultivate those relationships, because we're not in control of when somebody who we speak to is ready to work with us or is ready to have their problem solved. And some people might never want to have their problem solved either. And they might go on suffering. But the more conversations we have, which takes time, the more likelihood there is that somebody that we have spoken to and nurtured and cultivated that relationship with is going to pop at some point. And so it's also just we haven't talked about this in this conversation yet, but there's a resilience to that. There's a to continue and keep going.
Well, I think sometimes it's, people's egos have to die in order to keep going. But maybe that's a topic for another episode. So in conclusion, to recap here, really what we're talking about is it's just put yourself out there and try to help people. That's really what it is. And I mean, one kind of maybe reflection question for people is like, think of someone that you've met that you really admire, and just imagine if you had never met that person, if you had never reached out, or they never reached out, or you'd never been connected, if someone didn't introduce you, and that person introduced, like at some point that someone had to start the conversation somewhere, whether it was that person or the person before, and just like imagine what would have happened if you never had that connection, and then build on that. Think of someone fits all of that criteria who you haven't met, and just imagine what would happen if you started a conversation.
Love that.
What would that look like? What would happen? Is there anything we want people to know or take away, Ped?
Just to remember that the biggest shifts don't come from pitching louder; they come from asking better questions.
On that note, subscribe to the channel, like the video, listen, rate the podcast wherever you're watching or listening.
Do the things.
Yeah, check out our free newsletter where you can get some of this stuff ahead of time. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Bye.